Hi. Phase 8 from Korg Berlin is a unique electro-acoustic instrument. Its core sound is created using resonators, thin sheets of metal excited by an electromagnetic driver. These drivers can pluck the resonators at various velocities, kind of like you would a kalimba, but also create sounds with a gentle attack or sustain a resonator's sound for as long as you like. Since the resonators are mechanical moving parts, you can also interact with them with various materials as they play to change their sound. And then down the signal path, Phase 8 has distortion and modulation to further shape the sound. It has 8 of these resonators and a sequencer to trigger them either standalone or in sync with other gear. In this video, I'll take a look at it in detail, explore some pairing ideas with effects, and talk about its pros and cons. I'll also post multi-sampled instruments of it on my Patreon. Before I start, a quick disclosure: Korg sent me Phase 8. Other than that, no money changed hands. They have no say over the content of this video and don't get to see it before it's published. Okay, let's start with an overview. As you can see, Phase 8 looks unlike any other synth. It's got 8 voices, so you can play them in parallel. The pitch and timbre of each voice is shaped by the length, material, and shape of these 8 resonators as you excite them with the electromagnetic exciters or interact with them physically. You can also change their timbre by placing objects on them. Small objects might be risky, bigger ones work too. So I guess in synth terms, any object is a potential wave shaper. Anyway, plenty of room for exploration there. The resonators it comes installed with are tuned to a major scale, starting with C3, like the white keys on a piano, and it also comes with 5 more resonators for the black keys on the piano in between the white notes, in case you want to shake things up a bit. To replace the resonators, you'll need to manually unscrew the resonator you want to swap out, and then insert the new resonator. It takes a while to get it right and to get the tuning right. And then you'll also need to change the position of the electromagnetic driver. Whether you replace these or not with the factory resonators, you've got a maximum range of 1 octave. You can set the velocity and envelope for each of the 8 resonators individually. In the first half of the envelope knob's travel, it plays notes with increasing decay and increasing level too. And then beyond 50%, notes will sustain with an increasing attack and release. Velocity increases the sound's level and sets us apart from the noise. And then as you push it, a wave folder kicks in, distorting the sound and adding harmonics. The buttons on the bottom have multiple purposes depending on the mode and shift functions you can use. In live mode, they play the resonators, and this works polyphonically. You can also use them to play live into the sequence. In step mode, you use them to add steps onto the sequence. And in skip mode, you use them to omit steps from a sequence. Or if you change one of the settings, I'll show you how to do that later. Skip mode works a little bit differently. It just shortens the sequence. You can also use them to load and save patterns. You can store 8 patterns on board with 2 variations for each pattern. So for example, I can load pattern 1, play it, and this is variation B. It would seem like patterns are only 8 steps long, and they are in step mode, but in live mode you can play multiple notes unquantized into the pattern, including, I'm told by the company, up to 8 notes per step. So if you slow down the tempo a lot, you can squeeze in a lot more than 8 notes per loop. If we call each voice a track, you can also use these to mute tracks, to clear tracks from the sequencer, and to quantize steps. Other sound shaping here, beside the wave folder are the 3 mod types with a mod depth and rate per type. More on this later. Phase 8 also has a fader called Air, which gradually opens up all the pickups simultaneously, as opposed to them being only tightly controlled by the envelopes. This opens them up to external influence, including noise and feedback, taps on the synth itself, and it'll also pick up feedback from your speakers, so just be aware of that. The shift knob doesn't act like a shift parameter, rather it just adds another tap at an increasing distance from the first trigger. And this is tempo synced. Then finally for the panel, we've got this Pluck touch control, where by default touching or strumming the resonators doesn't actually open up their VCA. Pluck does, and you can either tap them lightly or use something to tap them, or give them a thwack to get them to play. And we've got shift on, so that's why we're hearing the double tap. And if we increase the envelope beyond the 50%, then we can drone the resonators. And then silence them with a sort of little tap here. Interestingly, the resonators will continue to drone even if their velocity is all the way down or the VCA is closed. You won't hear this through the outputs, but you will very faintly in the room, until you mute them, of course. You will hear them if you increase velocity, and this means that you can play Phase 8 kind of like a drone synth, gradually increasing and decreasing the level of its resonators. You can add effects, of course. Change the timbre. In terms of build, Phase 8 is all metal and quite hefty. Then for connectivity, you've got a single monophonic 1/4-inch output, 3.5mm headphone output, analog sync in and out, 3.5mm mini jacks for MIDI in and out, and a CV input which you can assign to a number of different parameters across the synth. You've also got a USB-C jack in the back for MIDI and firmware updates, though not audio. In the box, you'll find a quick start guide to help people who haven't seen this video get started. The synth itself. You don't get any dongles to convert from the mini jacks to large MIDI jacks, so buy those in advance if you need them. Power supply, an Allen wrench, and the black key resonators. Okay, let's dive in a little bit deeper and explore the different mod types. All the way on the left is a tremolo mode. You've got depth and rate control. That's the range pretty much. Then moving it all the way to the right gives us audio rate amplitude modulation that's polyphonic, meaning that the pitch of the modulator will be aligned to the pitch of each resonator to give us more harmonically pleasing results. So let's hear this for example. This is our raw tone. And then if we increase the depth, you can hear the audio rate modulation and different harmonics. And we've got rate control here. And of course, we need to play with depth. So if you're interested in leaving kalimba territory, this is the way to go. Now, interestingly, if we hold the quantize button while turning the rate knob, it'll quantize the rate to harmonically aligned frequencies. Really musical. This kind of sounds like an octave transposed down. This works here too, for example. So not quite a transpose, but an interesting effect regardless. This sounds really nice, I think, and musical. Of course, all these harmonics sent into effects sounds even better. Then finally, the center mod switch has two modes which you can change in the settings. By default, it's set to a pitch bend, meaning a pitch bend of the modulator. You can't bend the pitch of the resonators, but you can hear the pitch of the modulator aligns nicely with the pitch of the resonator at the end. Now to swap this, we need to change the global settings, and I guess now is as good a time as any to do that. You turn the synth off and then turn it on while holding record. And the LEDs start to perform the wave to show you you're in settings mode. Then these become on-off toggles for 3 different views or 3 different sets of settings. We basically need to turn this setting off to change the mode of the middle mod type. Let's get out of this. So now mod type 2 becomes vibrato amplitude modulation. This applies a vibrato to the modulator's pitch. Okay, let's move on and take a look at sequencing a little bit more in depth. I already mentioned earlier, you can step sequence each of the voices. You select a voice by holding select and choosing that voice, and then add steps onto the pattern. Let's move the tempo up a bit. Then choose a different voice. And let's sequence one more voice. There's no easy way to sequence a chord per step. You've got to do it note by note or track by track. It would be nice if they added a mode like that. Anyway, that's step sequencing. Like I said earlier, you can also skip steps in certain voices to get polymetric patterns. You can clear voice tracks by holding clear and pressing the track, or select and clear to clear the whole pattern. And that's pretty much as far as step sequencing goes. For live sequencing, it's a bit of a challenge because there's no metronome to get a feel for the clock, except looking at this. But sequencing live is much more powerful in that you can play with your own timing and play chords. Clearly, that's a keeper. If you like a pattern, you can just hit Shift, Save, and save it into any one of the slots. I was on slot 3, but let's say save it into slot 4. The buttons, by the way, aren't velocity sensitive, but if you play with an external keyboard, Phase 8 will respect velocity, though not record it into the sequencer, at least as of the current firmware. You can also play into a pattern by holding Pluck and strumming into the pattern. Plucks, however, are recorded just as regular triggers, so none of the intensity of the performance gets saved. I don't know if it's intended or not, but when you record this way, notes are sustained or tied. So that's a way to enter tied notes, I guess. If the micro timing isn't to your taste, you can hold quantize and choose to quantize all or some of the tracks. Of course, that may take all the charm out of the performance, so we won't do that. Quantization, by the way, is to 16th notes, not to 8th notes. So that's sequencing of notes. You can also record automation into a pattern. So say, for example, if I wanted this to happen on certain notes, just hit record and move the knob. You can also automate the modulation. So let's say that I wanted this to happen for a bit. So again, just hit record. You can also automate the air fader. And I think you can also automate both shift and even the tempo. So pretty cool stuff. Now all along we can of course mess with the resonators. I think that's where the experimental nature of the synth becomes very interesting. You can also mute resonators the old-fashioned way. By the way, clear and mute clears all the mutes. There's a bunch of other shortcuts like select and clear clears the whole pattern, and doing that again undoes that. Then a few miscellaneous items, a few words about MIDI. All the knobs and faders send out MIDI CCs, so you can use Phase 8 as a controller. You can trigger its notes in one of two ways, either fixed MIDI notes per step, or based on the actual notes played by the resonator. That mode is available in the settings, like I showed you earlier. Okay, let's talk about pros and cons for Phase 8, and I'll start with the cons. An absolute con is that this is limited in its pitch range. It comes with an octave, maybe with a few sharps and flats, but unless you pair it with a pitch shifter, that's going to be pretty much as far as you go, with the exception of the quantized mod type 3 I showed you earlier. An octave shifter is nice, and if you can get a precise semitone pitch shifting effector pedal, I think you're going to enjoy this even more. And in terms of timbral range, I'd say it does have a distinct sound, even though the wave shaping and the mod types help change that a bit. This is more like an acoustic instrument than a synth, and I guess kind of like an electric guitar, it has a certain tone on its own, and you can expand that a lot with effects. Also on the cons side, tuning the synth requires physically adjusting the placement of the resonators, something I found requires quite a bit of patience and trial and error. And remember, if you want to change a note, it requires physically swapping out resonators. So if you're impatient when a guitarist tunes their guitar on stage, you're not going to enjoy a performer tuning their Phase 8. Then finally on the cons side, I think the noise floor here is relatively high when playing decade notes at lower levels, but if you crank up intensity, you'll hit the wave folder, get more distorted sounds, but it'll help avoid the noise. On the other hand, you might call the noise character, and you can hear it sort of ebbing and flowing in the background. Kind of like a Juno chorus, but not in stereo. Then on the pros side, to Korg Berlin's credit, they've managed to take electromagnetically exciting a thin piece of metal pretty far, letting you control its level and timbre with a wave folder and tuned audio rate modulation are pretty neat timbral tricks. That introducing the air fader allows all manner of chaos and feedback in, which is an interesting twist, especially since you can automate it as part of a sequence. So how you treat this synth really depends on how far you're willing to go experimenting with all these things. If you treat it just like a sequenceable kalimba, then you might not find it exciting. But I seriously enjoyed processing its sounds with effects. Messing with its acoustics. This plays through effects nothing like a guitar or a synth, so to me in that respect it's unique, especially when you start automating parameters using the sequencer. Now I do have a few wishlist features. First, it would be great to be able to sequence this polyphonically. You can play live polyphonically, but when step sequencing you've got to go voice by voice. Also, it would be great to be able to step sequence the automation as opposed to just playing it live. I also encountered some bugs during testing this pre-release firmware, which Korg told me they'd address in the release firmware. So to sum it up, I don't think I'd recommend this as a synth for beginners, but if you're up for experimentation and new sounds, you might find this interesting. I think it's a great example of innovation in synthesis. And if you'd like to get a taste of playing it at home, I'll upload a sample pack to my Patreon, where you'll also find my ever-expanding book of electronic music ideas, tips, and tricks. Hit like if this was useful. Ring the YouTube bell below if you want to make sure you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching.